Now, you've also shot a bunch of really famous people and big names out there. Tell us a little bit more about these special moments.
Person closest to my heart, I think, is A.R. Rahman. So one day we were just in the studio and he said, "Come, let's take some pictures." So I think that was my most favorite shot, and I think it's closest to my heart.
Is there anything you don't like shooting?
Can't think of anything right now. Maybe no. I think I like shooting everything.
What about weddings?
No events. No.
There you go. Now you have your answer.
Okay, no, I don't shoot events. My first mirrorless lens was the 14-24 that I picked it up for traveling. So
Did you use that lens before?
No, that was my first time. I went and bought the lens. I didn't even, to be very honest, I didn't even read a review. I wanted a wide lens. The only good wide mirrorless I could find was the Sigma 14-24.
Let's come back to your workflow. So now you are done selecting your concept, you are done selecting your model, your makeup artist, your entire crew, and the shoot's done. How do you go forth? How do you post-process? Do you retouch yourself?
Most of the time, yes.
Wow,
So
okay.
once in a while, I do get it retouched outside, but that's very rare, like maybe once or twice. But I have a vision in my mind, and when I actually start working, I have my presets made on Capture One. I edit a lot on Capture One. So I make my presets. I shoot tethered as well. So I have my pictures on Capture One by the time the shoot is done. So I can preview it, pick it. So I have a workflow for that as well. So once the pictures are picked, I throw out the preset which I need. I have like maybe 30 or 40 presets saved for my style. So once I do this, then I move it to Photoshop to retouch, which I'm not the best retoucher, but I do a decent job, I guess. So it's pretty quick. I do a quick retouch, maybe like 20-30 minutes per picture.
Oh, that's very quick.
Yeah, I think that's all I could do. So 20-30 pictures exported. And I usually export it in max quality possible, then scale it down depending on what use case it is. If it's for print, I leave it as it is. If it's going to be for social media, then you scale it down because Instagram doesn't support too high resolution. So that's pretty much my workflow.
So how often, what is the approximate timeline from, let's say, start of a concept or inception of a concept till you see the final results, considering if everything is in place?
For me, I like editing pictures very quickly. So when if I have the selection, I start very, very fast. If I'm available, I do most of the pictures on the same day of the shoot because the mind is fresh and you know where the lights were, you know where everything was. So I usually do a single batch of pictures by the end of the day or maybe the next day. So
wow, okay, that's supremely quick.
Yeah, but if there are a lot of pictures, then it takes some time. It's a little backlogged.
Now let's talk a little bit about the other side. Let's go back to your friends from the audio community.
Yes.
Now, those who know you as a photographer and an audio engineer, what do they have to say about it? Do you have a lot of artists coming to you and say like, "Hey, Nav, why don't you shoot me?"
That does happen a lot. Yes. So like I said, I love shooting people. So I love shooting people when they are doing their art. So I love shooting musicians mainly. So I do enjoy that a lot, especially creating a lot of drama because a musician, when shooting a regular picture, is going to look like something which you upload on LinkedIn, which I don't want to do. I want to create something more dramatic, something more which makes them look like a superstar or a rock star. I think I try my best to bring that out of them. I think that's most of my style.
And even in Dubai, do you shoot a lot of musicians?
Yes, I do. Yes, I love doing that.
Very nice. Now, I want to ask you, is there anything you don't like shooting?
Tricky question.
Nobody will get offended. It's okay. We'll take care of it.
Can't think of anything right now. Maybe... No, I think I like shooting everything.
What about weddings?
No events, no.
There you go. Now you have your answer.
Okay, no, I don't shoot events. Because for me, the whole idea about shooting events is when I like to be under control of my light and I like to be under control of what I see. So I like to stick to that. Now, even if it's outdoor or indoor. Yeah.
Yes, that's also the same reason why I don't shoot events, guys. Now, coming back, again, we're going to go a bit more scroll back.
Sure.
Your Instagram profile, I think for the longest time said obviously photography. And then if I'm not wrong, you also have a sound engineering profile, or a sound profile separately. But I think it says audio engineer, photographer, and it says chai lover.
Yes, that's true. I am a chai addict, so I cannot function without tea. So I wake up, have chai, go to work, have chai. While working, I have chai. So it's like 7 or 8 chais a day.
Wow.
And I think that keeps me going pretty much the entire day.
So now I'm digressing a bit, but Navneeth and I, back in I think 2017, we were there in Vietnam for a shoot. We were shooting a corporate documentary, and I'm a non-vegetarian, so I was actually having a ball. I loved the food there, but Navneeth, on the other hand, was having a little bit of a hard time, and he would ask for tea daily. Not just tea, he would also ask me for curd rice.
That's true. Yes, I still like curd rice. I think curd rice is irreplaceable for me.
So in that trip, we were there for a week, I think.
Yeah, I think little longer than a week, maybe.
Little longer than a week. So we were searching for many days, and then finally the last day, the one night before we actually flew back to India, we found a restaurant with curd rice, and I've never seen that much happiness on his face before, and I still don't think I'll ever see more happiness on his face.
Because 1 week of no Indian food and suddenly you see Indian food, you're like happy. Yeah.
Super. Now I'm going to bring this list back.
Yes,
This is a list of all the Sigma lenses that you own,
Yes.
and also all the lenses that are currently. You have them in Chennai right now?
Not all of them. Most of them are in Dubai. I think
Okay.
2 of them are in Chennai right now. I'll
Super.
carry them back. 3
So
of them
I'm
are
going to
Chennai.
go in order.
Okay.
And there are a few lenses that I think few lenses you already spoke about, few lenses I want you to speak about.
Sure.
Let's start with the very first Sigma art lens that you had. That's the 51.4 art.
DG.
When did you get it?
So this lens I think was bought really long ago. I think it was right after the art series was launched.
So maybe 2014.
2016. I'm not too, maybe 2015, I guess. I'm not too sure when I bought it. It's been really long time. So when I bought this lens, I used to shoot on a crop body. I've never liked shooting on a crop body, and I was never impressed by the resolution or the image quality which I used to get out of that camera. So the moment I bought this lens, I put it on and I shot a couple of studio shots. I took it outdoor, and I was pretty mind blown as to wondering if it's the same camera. I was like, okay, I didn't know this could happen. I was shooting wide open. I was shooting it stop down because studio many times we don't shoot wide open. So
And you're shooting with strobes.
and with red, exactly. So I've done all of this and I've got incredible detail. I was like, wow, okay. Then that literally blew my mind. Then I was like, okay, I'm shooting in a very tiny studio. So I had a home setup. So I had a very tiny studio space. So I couldn't move around much. So with the 50, maximum I could get was maybe till the legs. I could never get the full body shots. So for me, then I jumped to a 35. I picked up the 35.4 art. It was phenomenal optics like the 50, but a wider perspective. So that was a lens which could bridge the gap for me in a studio, which could do both. I could do wider shots, I could do super close-ups. I was mind blown by this lens. So even after I moved from a crop body, I moved to another brand, which was I was using it with the.
I think you were also using the 5D back then, the full frame.
Full frame, yeah. I was using it for a while, yeah, off ID. Yeah. So then I moved to a crop body. I moved to a full frame. I moved to a different brand. So when I moved, I used to use these lenses with an adapter. When I did that, the image quality of what I was getting was super impressive. I was mind blown. I have bunch of pictures shot on those lenses, which still look amazing, which I had no issues with till today. It's like still mind blowing lenses.
Now, I know you've shot hundreds of models, maybe even thousands at this point, because I think almost every week you're at least shooting 2 or 3 different
That's
people.
true, yeah.
Now, you've also shot a bunch of really famous people and big names out there. Can you tell us a little bit more about these special moments?
I think for me, the most famous person or like the person closest to my heart, I think is A.R. Rahman. So one day we were just in the studio and he said, come, let's take some pictures. So this was actually shot on the first 51.4.
The 51.4 Canon.
The Canon mount one. So
which you adapted for your Sony.
With the mirrorless, the MC11 adapter. So I think that was my most favorite shot and I think it's closest to my heart. It was a black and white picture. So I've shot many people after that, but yeah, everybody has their own space.
The picture shot of Mr. A.R. Rahman. This one is the one which was in Firdaus Orchestra.
Yes,
the studio.
It's the studio. Yes, it's framed. It's framed and it's stuck on the wall. So it's a nice picture, which I really enjoy. Yeah,
very nice. And do you still, on a regular basis, shoot for the studio? I know you are obviously the lead sound engineer there, but do you still get calls saying like, "Hey, Navneeth's here. Why don't you just take some pictures?"
So I do shoot a lot of musicians, which I really enjoy. Like I like shooting them with a lot of drama, and I like showing them as a star because that's what they are. They are rock stars, and they are really great musicians. So I would like to show them in a much more dramatic way, and which makes them look like superstars in images. I think that's my style.
Superb. Now, I think after this, most of your other lenses are all mirrorless lenses. That's when you shifted to the
That's
Sony.
correct. Yes, that's correct. So my first mirrorless lens was the 14-24 that I picked it up for traveling. So I spoke about it. I actually picked up that lens without any expectations. I wanted a travel lens. I was traveling, so I needed a lens. So
Did you use that lens before?
no, that was my first time. I went and bought the lens. I didn't even, to be very honest, I didn't even read a review. I wanted a wide lens. The only good wide mirrorless I could find was the Sigma 14-24. It was a 2.8 DGDN. So I picked it up and I took it on the trip, and I was pretty, like I told you, it's an exceptional lens. I think that was my first experience with the mirrorless, where everything is just so much more integrated. You don't have to swap mounts.
I mean, coming from the DSLR days, I think there's just something lighter about these lenses.
Yeah, because I was, when I switched to mirrorless, funny story is, when I switched to mirrorless, I was like, oh, this camera is too light. I can't deal with this. It's too small. But the moment I held your 5D after holding a mirrorless, it feels like you're holding a tank and you're holding a toy. So it's a huge difference.
Yes,
the 5D is
image
like
quality, though, the image quality which you can get out of the current set of bodies, it's just unrivaled.
Yeah, that's true. I think current mirrorless cameras and the great optics you get out of it is the amount of detail and
the autofocus also, it's just superior. There was a time when mirrorless cameras, the autofocus, maybe the first gen of mirrorless cameras, the autofocus was
a bit
not
sad.
great, but the current ones, it's brilliant.
It's on point. I've shot many movement shots of models running around, dancing. Every time your camera locks onto the eye, the Sigma lens is in focus. Wow. I've had maybe once or twice where it's not in focus. That would be my fault because I would have clicked late. But pretty much every time it is on dot.
Are you a manual focus person or are you an autofocus person?
I am pretty much an autofocus person because I shoot very fast. So I don't like to keep track of where the model is standing. I would rather have the model do the model's thing and I just do the clicking. So I put it on eye tracking and it pretty much does the job on point.
So next, I see you have a bunch of, again, a bunch of 50s, and basically every kind of 50, I think, out there.
Sigma made,
and you have the 35 1.2, which is actually Sigma's first 1.2 for the mirrorless cameras, I think. Can you tell me more about that?
Again, I wanted, so when I moved to the mirrorless side of things, I was very impressed as to how everything was more integrated. Now I wanted another 35 to replace.
So you still had your 35 1.4.
Yeah, I did.
Which you were using with the converter.
With the converter. Okay. So when I wanted to get another lens, I didn't know the 35 1.2 existed. So I went to YouTube and I was like, okay, 35 1.4 Sigma, the new lens. I randomly scrolling through and I found a review of the 1.2. I was like, wait, this lens is new. Let me go pick this up. So I picked it up and I've shot many, many pictures. I think one of my favorite bunch of pictures were shot on the 35 1.2. Razor sharp wide open, and it has a lot of drama even at 1.2. It's a very buttery lens to use. I really like how it functions.
And what about the color fringing? Because in plenty of your pictures, since you also shoot wide open, sometimes what about you have extremely bright backdrops? Do you think that's well controlled?
I think it's phenomenally controlled because when you have a purple or a green fringe in a photo, nobody's going to look at it. It's going to look very weird.
No, you should just do my thing. Put a black and white filter on
it. Or that, yes. So when you have a picture, like that, it takes away from the actual tone and color of the image, which I'm not a big fan of. So I wanted lenses which could do this in extreme, which performs like. I think the lens of a photographer is basically something which is transparent. The photo, the subject, and the cameraman is all that matters. So
it's an extension of your eye, I would say.
Pretty much, yes. So I think Sigma lens does a very, very good job of that. I've never had issues of fringing or distortion. Even if it's there, it's very minimal that a common man or even I cannot notice. There have been multiple cases where I've zoomed in so much and I'm like, where is the fringing? There is no fringing.
So now I think you are slowly transitioning from one end of the focal length spectrum to the other end. Now I see 105 and then I also see a 135. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. So I think both of them are really nice lenses.
And very heavy lenses.
Heavy, yes. And I think the optics speak for itself. So two stories about each lens. So about the 105, when I was shooting, there was a shot where I was very close to the subject. I was taking a picture of their face. So when I actually zoomed into the shot, I could see my reflection on the eye, and I could guess that was me. It was the amount of detail, and that was mind blowing for me because I've not got that out of any lens. Like the amount of definition and the sharpness of, and you can see every single eyelash with. It's more like a microscope at that point. It's so clean. Yeah,
Suddenly, it makes your retouching job a lot harder.
it does. Yes, yeah. When you have good makeup, I think it's pretty much covered. Yeah.
And what about the 135?
About the so a story about the 135 is I was shooting a model, and it was actually a very simple shot, a single light, a huge umbrella. I think it was a 170 or something. It's a big umbrella with a diffuser. When I was shooting that shot, I thought, okay, let's try shooting this wide open. Why not? So I shot it at 1.8. You can actually see the shot where the eye is crystal clear, and the texture around the eye is super sharp. But it's a shot which is a mid shot. You zoom in, and you can see every single line on the face. But when you zoom out, the amount of depth you get and the amount of drama, it's a very simple shot, but it looks very beautiful and very classy. I don't think I would have ever got that with any other lens.
Not a lot of lenses will offer such a much quality.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I've not got that from anything else.
And then finally, I see that your most recent purchase was the 51.2.
51.2, yes.
So I think you were impressed with the 35.1.2, and then you decided you need a 50 version as well.
Yes, pretty much. So I picked up that lens where I think right after before I was traveling again. I wanted to do some street stuff, so I took it out and I was traveling around city. I was shooting people on the street, and the amount of depth is something else. When you have a person in focus, the background is literally looks like heaven, and it's like super smooth, and there's
so that the isolation is great.
Yeah, it's great, and the amount of contrast you get out of that lens is unrivaled, because when you're shooting wide open on any lens, you would be expecting a lot of haze, a lot of like the contrast usually drops when
Correct.
you shoot wide open, but this lens contrast is there. I've shot many in black and white. I can put up a few shots where it just feels right. You don't have to do much of work in post at all. I've barely put like the default black and white preset on Capture One, and I've taken an export, and it looks
So what's
phenomenal.
next on your list? What lens are you planning to pick up next?
I think it will be the 28-45, that one. The 1.8.
I see that you already have it mounted on your body.
Yes. So my next lens would be that, because it's a great travel lens. So this with the 14-24, I think is a great combination.
I actually think that it's pretty much all you need for travel.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just a brilliant piece of kit once
That's
again.
true. Yeah.
Lovely. Now I want you to, personally, because I know you very well, I know the kind of lighting that you do, but I want you to walk us through your favorite lighting, at least one or two favorite lighting setups, and something which you think is easy enough that other people can actually follow.
Sure. So for me, I usually use a parabolic umbrella to shoot most of my work. I think when you're shooting somebody's, especially when you're doing fashion work and when you're doing model work, you need the model's eye to be the most, at least for me, it has to be the most captivating part of the image. So your catch light is really important. So make sure when you're shooting, your catch lights are prominent. So when I do this, I have a single parabolic. I think you can achieve this with pretty much an umbrella. I think it will give you the very similar result or the same result. A single umbrella with maybe a slight fill on the side and a rim light. I think a basic 3-point lighting would give you most of the detail and the drama you need in the image. But if you're looking at something which is more, you want more contrast, keep one single light and move it around the subject and see what it does. See what you want to get out of that image. When you look at an image, that image has to do something to you. Try and figure out what that image has to do and move the light to figure out where it does that. I think the most simplest way to do it.
Lovely. And color gels, how do you use color gels? Is there a particular pattern or technique in which you use them, or you just decide and then for this shot, I think this color works? And how do you go about that? Is that spontaneous?
Most of the time, yes, it is spontaneous, because when you have a color gel, it's never the same when you are throwing it in front of a strobe, because a strobe is white balance to a certain level, and your room is in a different white balance, and your gel is pretty much white balance to something else. So when you work with a gel, you need to know exactly what that gel and how that gel is going to affect the shot and how it's going to affect the skin tone. Because when you do that, your skin tone shouldn't look completely wrong. Because if for example, you're going to use a warm gel, it shouldn't make the model or the subject look more yellow or more. It should add something to the image and not just make it more saturated. So you have to work around and figure out what works. Because I usually stick to, I have a certain set of gels which I've worked with for years, and I know which gel works for which. So for me, I think that's my workflow.
Very lovely. Navneeth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I think this conversation has been a lot of fun for me because I don't always get to interview my closest friends. But also, I think it's been very insightful to our audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranit. Thank you so much.
So, and that's Navneeth Balachanderan for you on Through the Lens. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back here on the same channel with very exciting content very soon. Thank you.